Hey everybody, Jessica Levinson in for Harry. I'm a professor at Loyola Law School and host of the podcast Passing Judgment. Just a few moments ago, we got a verdict in the case of journalist E Jean Carroll versus the former President Trump. The headline here is that Carroll won, and she won big. She won on both counts here, both battery in the form of sexual abuse and defamation. And I'm going to break it all down for you in relatively quick fashion. So this is a civil case. It's not a criminal case. So we're talking about monetary damages, not jail time. This case was heard in federal court. There were 9 jurors, 6 men, 3 women. And because we're in federal court, they had to come to a unanimous decision. And they did so pretty quickly. They went and they deliberated for about 3 hours. That's relatively fast. And my strong suspicion is that they knew when they went back to that jury room, they knew they were going to find liability. They knew they were going to find liability on both counts. And the discussion for the 3 hours was likely about the amount of damages. So people might be saying, well, if this jury found that there was sexual abuse, why is this not a criminal case? This isn't a criminal case because the events here occurred too long ago. The statute of limitations has run. The prosecution cannot bring this case. But New York changed its law to allow for adult survivors of sexual abuse to have basically an extra year window to bring cases that would have been too old. And that's why this case dealing with a sexual abuse that occurred in the mid-1990s, that's why it was able to be brought both as a battery claim and as a defamation claim. Were it not for New York's new law, this would just have been a defamation claim. And again, what is the defamatory statement here? The defamatory statement is when the former president said, I didn't rape that woman. She's not my type. This never happened. This is all a con job. This is all a hoax. And she's just trying to sell books. So let's back up for a second. As I said, 2 counts here. One of battery because of New York's new law that allows adult survivors of abuse to bring these claims later than they otherwise would. And one of defamation. And again, the defamation claim is based on the former president's denial that he sexually abused E Jean Carroll, journalist E Jean Carroll. So we know those are the basic counts. We know that E Jean Carroll won on both of them. And we know that the jury awarded E Jean Carroll $5 million in damages. A couple of things for us to think about. One, the former president didn't testify. Instead, they had his videotaped testimony. Did that hurt him? And my view is, I don't think it did, even though it was very harmful. I think putting him on the stand in front of a jury could have actually been worse. And maybe we would have been talking about 30 minutes of deliberation as opposed to 3 hours. So the deposition testimony that we heard from the former president, it was not good. He was caught in lies. We, of course, know that when he was presented with a picture of himself and E Jean Carroll and others, he incorrectly identified E Jean Carroll as Marla Maples, one of his wives, one of his past wives, which hurts the president because part of his defense was, well, I didn't abuse her because she's not my type. He later, of course, admitted that his former wives were his type. So that did harm him. And it allowed Carroll's attorneys to walk into court and say to the jurors, he didn't even come in here. He didn't even come and look you in the eye and say, I didn't do this. So the testimony on the video was harmful, and it allowed them to make that argument of, why isn't he even here? Having said that, having the former president walk into a courtroom and testify live, I think has its own host of huge risks. This is a president that has been caught in lies under oath. There are different penalties for lying, and I think he would have been a hugely problematic witness for himself. So even though he lost, it might still have been the right call for him not to testify. Now, of course, we'll never know. Another thing to consider here is that I think the jury simply did not buy Trump's argument or his attorney's argument that there's a certain way that victims of sexual abuse are supposed to act. What E Jean Carroll and her attorneys argued, and I think we will see this in other cases, is people react to trauma in different ways. And please don't expect a woman who is a victim of abuse to go through and do X, which is screaming, or Y, which is calling a friend in hysterics. People react, again, in different ways. So I think in some senses, this case, even though it is historic, even though it deals with the former president of the United States, it could provide a bit of a roadmap for other victims moving forward. So again, what we wanted you to know, Carroll wins, Trump loses. It's in a civil case. The standard of proof is lower for Carroll because we're talking about monetary damages, not a criminal case where it's proof beyond a reasonable doubt. She was successful. Will there be appeals? Yes, but I do not think those appeals will be successful. How does this play politically? My guess is for the Republican base, it doesn't change much, that this won't change their view of the former president, particularly his supporters. That'll be different in the general election when you have to appeal to a broader base. For independents, for moderates, a verdict like this could affect their view of the former president. So that's all for now on the case. I hope that was helpful.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.